Thankfully, Danny is not a betting man because his pick of the Boston Celtics winning in 6 is a wrap. It's over. It's finished with. This is Inside the Green Room with Danny Green. I'm Harrison Sanford. I also had the Boston Celtics win the NBA Finals in 6 games, but they threw it away, literally and figuratively. We will get all the way down with what happened with the Boston Celtics, but first we got to give our respect to who I would think, Danny, somebody who wins the award for Best Supporting Actor in an NBA drama, Andrew Wiggins.
Okay. Give us your reasons why, man.
He absolutely balled out tonight. 26 points, 13 rebounds, coming off a 16 and 17 game in game 4, which is obviously pivotal because they were down 2-1 and they survived. Warriors survived this game with Steph Curry not hitting a 3. First time he's done that in 233 games. Crazy.
His playoff career. First time in his playoff career, right? 138 playoff games.
I believe it's first time in his playoffs, 233 straight games in general, that he's always hit at least 1 3. So Andrew Wiggins has pretty much changed the narrative. If you look at how he's played throughout the playoffs, especially now in the finals on this platform, he's changed the narrative about who he was, obviously being a first-round draft pick and coming in, playing in with the Minnesota Timberwolves, was pretty much seen as somebody that Golden State could eventually trade. But again, he's the second best player on the Warriors, and he might mess around and win Finals MVP.
Yeah, if he has another great appearance or another great outing like that, I think I might pick him as MVP if Steph is off again. But it's not because of the offense, and I spoke on this on the Spotify live tonight. But his defense, more importantly than anything, he's holding Jayson Tatum, who's struggling, in certain points of the game. He got hot at a certain point in the third quarter, but he's holding Jayson Tatum to some very limited numbers. He's not getting good looks. He's not getting to the free throw line like he wants to. He's taking some bad, tough shots and turning the ball over. Him and Brown, timely turnovers that really hurt their team. And it's a lot because of his defense, his length, his athleticism, and of course his rebounding. So defensively, he's been a monster, and offensively, he's come to life and picking up, where they need the help, because obviously Steph was struggling tonight, but they needed some scoring, and he came up big for them.
Yeah, overall tonight, Andrew Wiggins was spectacular. He held Jayson Tatum still played well. And going into this game, Jayson Tatum was still shooting 45% from the 3-point land. Tonight, he was 5 of 9 from 3. But we've seen throughout the course of these NBA finals, the Celtics, or at least Jayson Tatum, has struggled in the fourth quarter. But again, I really got to focus in on what the Warriors did tonight, prevailing despite Steph Curry not playing well. Draymond Green and Danny, when I did ESPN radio on Sunday night, I actually had a little fun with the production team, and I had them playing some sound bites from The Godfather. And where The Godfather says, I'm going to make him an offer that he can't refuse. Yeah. And we played like the Godfather music in the background. And I was trying to propose that Steve Kerr should sit, or at least prioritize Kevon Looney over Draymond Green. The numbers backed it up so far. Draymond played a great game tonight. Not as many antics, a lot more basketball that he played tonight. Ended up with 8 points, I think, and 7 or 8 assists. But he also said after the game, as it pertains to Andrew Wiggins, shout out to Draymond Green, he played well. See, I'm not just a hater. Now, what he said after the game, whenever a player doesn't pan out, it's the player's fault. No one talks about the organization. And Andrew Wiggins, as we said, first round draft pick, has pretty much been seen as a non-intense type of guy who didn't care. Wouldn't say a bust, right? Because he's an NBA player who's making max money, but he's not seen. He hasn't been seen in that light that many probably put him in. But he gets in a situation now where he goes to Golden State, plays for a winning franchise, and now we start to see all the winning attributes that he has as an NBA player. You've been in the league for a while now. I'm sure you've interacted with guys who've had the whole narrative around who they are, not just as a player, but as a person, which is kind of crazy that people start judging your personality based off of basketball. But the whole narrative around Andrew Wiggins now is starting to do a 180 based on how he's performed in these playoffs and how he performed so far in these NBA finals.
Yeah. He's been playing amazing, man. I tip my hat off to the guy. But it's what he's capable of, you know. He just was in different situations, and there's been guys that have been in plenty of situations that weren't good for them, and if they got to a better situation, they would thrive. And it has to do a lot with not just the organization, but their vets, you know, their atmosphere. Some guys are just not groomed or raised the right way in this league, and you know, it's just an fortunate thing for them because they're not really shown how to be a professional, how to win, how to do things the right way. And there's a list of guys that goes on, and guys that have not made it, or you know, their career was cut shorter than it should have been, or guys that should have been superstars that weren't superstars, and that could have been if they were brought into the right situation. You know, for example, JaVale McGee, J.R. Smith, PJ Tucker. These are guys that came into the league, you know, with a different narrative, not just as a player, but as a person. Some of those guys weren't sure if they could stick or play a role, but now they become winners, and they become sought after guys throughout some part of their career of, you know, we need this guy on my team because they're intricate pieces to help us win. They know how to win and be a professional. So Andrew Wiggins is one of those guys where he was in, you know, certain situations where it wasn't a winning, you know, atmosphere. And I don't know what the veteran leadership was like or what the coaching staff was like. But, you know, it shows that, you know, there is a lot different than where he is now. And obviously in a different type of brand of basketball where you're winning, where the whole team cares more, it's different. So, and he's adapted, adjusted well. Obviously, he's gotten some time under his belt, which is great. You know, it's unfortunate that Clay's been out, and they've missed the playoffs the last 2 years. But it allowed all those guys to get their feet wet and understand the system and get prepared for this moment. Now that they're one of the better teams in the league and everybody's healthy, so yeah, it's a fun thing to see. It's amazing to see. I'm happy for the guy, and he's actually showing the world that he is a superstar that he was predicted to be. You know, drafted at number 1.
Well, I'm curious. And we've had JaVale on the show before just to point him out, former lottery pick. But I remember he was on Shaqtin' a Fool almost every week. And the narrative, because of Shaqtin' a Fool, because of playing for the Washington Wizards, who were going through a whole bunch of nonsense at that time, the narrative around him was pretty nasty. He goes to the Golden State Warriors, helps them win championships, and all of a sudden he's looked at differently. He's looked at as a winning player. I wonder what those conversations are like or were like with JaVale McGee as he reflected on the earlier part of his career and how it changed once he started winning.
We all wonder, man. I wonder what a lot of these execs and GMs were saying about these guys. Even said PJ Tucker about 7-8 years ago, what they were saying about him. You know, over the last 3 or 4 years, he's really solidified himself as one of those, you know, pieces that you need, you know, to win a championship. Defensively, getting after a gritty guy, rebounds, knock down a corner 3. JR as well, another guy. You know, I'm sure they looked at, oh, he probably does this and that off the court. He's a head case, whatever they thought. Went to Cleveland, you know, and was in winning basketball, guys cared, and became a champion. You know, now he's a 2-time champion, and he understands what it takes. And now, you know, he's a graduate now playing golf. He's doing amazing things off the court. So,
now, who would have thought that when they were writing all the nasty headlines when he was in Denver? Now, granted, some of it might have been, he might have caused it on himself, but at the same time, especially when he was with the Knicks, popping up at Greenhouse too much. I remember those days. But nonetheless,
nobody thought that.
Well, who would have thought that? Huh?
Nobody would have thought that, man. Coming straight out of high school, him to go back to try to get his degree and also play golf, and you have a 4.0 GPA, which is amazing, man. I have to tip my hat up to those guys that have changed their careers around and have been big staples on and off the court in our fraternity.
Yeah, it's a nasty game that sometimes we in the media play, using how somebody plays, or one bad or one misstep or a couple missteps to actually classify them as a character. And then again with Andrew Wiggins, that they say he wasn't intense, and like, who's to say a guy is not intense? I know you hate this. Sometimes they say guys aren't intense because they're not pumping their chest after they get a steal, or pumping their chest after they get a block. It's like,
because they don't show emotion.
Exactly. Doesn't mean that they don't have emotion. They maybe it's best for them not to show it. It's interesting how you think. It's interesting how that plays out. But but we cannot miss the fact, right? In Minnesota, he was pretty much the number 1 or the number 2 option, him and Karl-Anthony Towns, even though Jimmy Butler was there for a while too. So maybe he was the 3rd option, pretty much slated how he was in Golden State, but the culture seems to be different. It makes me think about Tobias Harris, another player who has a max contract, who, if he's the number 1 guy, you're probably not, or number 1 or number 2 guy, you're probably not in the most advantageous spot of winning an NBA title. But Danny, I thought once things got settled in Philadelphia this season, he played winning basketball. Like,
and last season too.
Yes, for sure. But I think even more season, this is more apropos because he's pretty much of the fourth option now. Yeah.
Yes. But you saw more of it in the playoffs on the defensive end. I think during the season last year, I saw a lot more of it during the season. He played both sides of the ball. And I thought he should have been an all-star, previous year to this year. But this year in the playoffs, he actually stepped up and thought about the team more than himself. He put his ego aside and cared more about winning the game and actually doing a role. Didn't care about getting shots against spots, but winning the game. So that's what showed you that he became a winning type player, because he didn't care about getting shots up or getting stats. He's like, I'm gonna play defense, I'm gonna rebound, I'm gonna get steals, do the little things, and try to do whatever I can to win the game and not complain about it. So when you see him do those types of things and become that type of player with a guy with a max contract that's used to shooting number 1 and 2 option amount of shots and be the fourth option, it shows a lot of growth in that player as a person.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so I was almost watching Andrew Wiggins thinking, like, I know there's a lot of rumors about what will happen with Tobias Harris this offseason. I do want to get to some offseason related news that I have that did come down the Twitter wire today. But it's interesting because I think about Tobias, I'm like, he could easily fit this role that Andrew Wiggins is playing. Obviously, they're different players, but when put in the right position, right now to the masses, Tobias Harris is seen as somebody who hasn't won yet, who's not a great player, who's overpaid. But to our original point when we started the show, a lot of it is about circumstance and not necessarily judging the guy by his payroll, by the checks that he cashes, but how he performs when put in an actual position to succeed. And to that point, Andrew Wiggins has opportunity with a team that's qualified to win an NBA title, and he's showing out. And I do think if Tobias Harris was put in that similar situation, he could do the same. Obviously, in a different type of play style, but I think he's totally capable of doing that. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what the Sixers do with him this off season. All right, Danny, before we get out of here, can I take you down dating memory lane?
Let's do it, man. Why not?
So, and to our listeners, this will make sense soon, I promise. So, when I was younger, 16 years old in New York City, I used to go to teen clubs, and I went to a teen club and I ran into A. Marie. Do you remember A. Marie?
Yeah, I do.
It's just one thing that got me tripping. Yeah. It's just why. Yeah, exactly.
Soundtrack for Hitch, right there.
Yes, yeah, exactly. A lot of people know. I thought she was beautiful. I loved her as a 16-year-old. At the time, she was 22. I met her at Club Speed, which was a teen club in New York City. And I didn't meet her. She was performing. And I told myself, I'm going to holler. I tried to holler because, you never know. You never know if you're going to get this chance again. So I hollered at her. I got rejected. And I said, you know what? If I see her again, I'm going to be more grown. I'm going to be more of a man. Again, I was 16. She was 22. So quiet as kept. I actually saw her here in Los Angeles maybe about 6 months ago. She's married now. It's over. Lost my chance at having my dream girl. Obviously, I wasn't going to get her. I was 16 years old. Same thing happened. Must have been about 2 months ago. I go to an LA function, and I ran into Victoria Pedretti. You know who that is?
Sounds familiar. Who is that?
That is Love Quinn from You.
Really? Love? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Ran into her. Bruh. I was like, oh,
she's dating a dude from You, though. She's dating the dude that she was having an affair with.
Is she? Was she?
The guy that's the young teen across the so the young teen that's in the show that is younger than her in the show, but older than her in real life, she supposedly was dating him. I don't know if she still is. But in the show, he was younger than her, but in real life, he's older, and he's like the next door neighbor teen kid that has a crush on her. And I think she ended up dating him in real life.
Oh, well, listen, I didn't know that at the time. And so what did I do? I shot my shot. Gotcha. Right? Because I got a rule. Like, if I see somebody that I find attractive, like what I never know if I'm going to have this opportunity again.
You're single.
Now, mind you, it was the end of the night. I probably wasn't as composed as I probably should have been when it was the beginning of the night. I probably didn't have my best outfit on, right? Because I thought it was just a normal night. I was out with the homies. We were dancing. You know, you get sweaty. And all of a sudden, my opportunity to get Victoria Pedretti gone. I'm never going to meet her again. I hope I get another chance.
It's LA, man.
I think I'll be prepared for my next chance.
I hope
but maybe I'll never see her again.
Hopefully,
and that's how the Boston Celtics are acting. I think they act like they have another chance. Okay. They maybe they do, but maybe they don't. And by the time they do, it's too late. They're out here fumbling. Tonight they had long story short. Tonight the Boston Celtics had 18 turnovers. Conversely, the Golden State Warriors also only had 6. The Boston Celtics shot 14 of 23 from the free throw line. You and I believe that the Boston Celtics are the better team, but they're giving their opportunities away, and it is shown tonight.
And they're not shooting the shot. They're keeping it tough. They're not doing like UH. They're like UH. They ain't turning it over. That's what they're doing. But hey, man, hopefully we'll see. If there's any team that can come back from a 3-2 deficit, I think they're talented enough and they're good enough to make it happen. Especially got their first game is at home. Game 6 is at home in Boston, so it takes one game at a time. So they can force it to 7. Anything can happen. It's hard. I got a stat tonight that the record for road teams in a Game 7 win in the finals, I think, is 4-15. So the odds are against them. But if there's a team that could do it, I think they're good enough. But Golden State has put themselves in a very good position right now.
Jeff Van Gundy pointed, Danny, as somebody who's played defense, I'm sure you're keeping your eye in tune. Jeff Van Gundy pointed out that when Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown go to their right, they are so much more successful than when they go to their left. Why are they? It's one thing to just have bad field goal attempts, right? Because I can credit that to the Golden State defense. I can also credit some of the steals to the Golden State defense too. But some of these are just terrible ball handling, terrible passing decision. How do you diagnose this?
It's because I said, when you're going to your strong hand, you're more capable of making a terrible play into a good play. You can, somehow get up a shot and make it look like a good shot because it's your strong hand. You go into your weak hand and you're not used to going there. You're not going there as often. It's hard when you have defense, like they can score with 2 people going right sometimes. It's a lot harder going left to your weak hand and making the pass across their body from their weak hand. So now defense can put the deflection on it and they're making decisions, losing the ball and trying to make a great play out of a terrible play where defense is collapsing. And that's where they're getting a lot of their turnovers. Going to the right hand, it's a lot easier to make a pass, a whip pass, a stronger pass. When you're trying to make a pass with your left hand or your right hand across your body, it's so much harder to complete that play than it is going to your strong hand. And that's where Golden State is capitalizing on it. They're making goals to the weak hand, but they're also not just making goals to the weak hand, but they're collapsing on it and they're getting a lot of high hands deflection to where they can't make comfortable passes with their right hand. They have to make it with their left hand, and they're getting in those lanes to where those passes, if they're not crisp, if you're not making a crisp, hard left hand pass, they're getting on steal. You'll see Gary Payton getting in the lane. You'll see Wiggins getting in the lane, Draymond. But if they get to the right hand, it's a lot easier to make that. You see Marcus Smart sometimes jump underneath the basket and whip one from faking the corner pass to the top of the key, which is a hell of a pass to do. Very hard to do going left for any of those guys. And even some of the greatest of the game that's played and greatest passes in the game, like Magic Johnson, LeBron James, they can make those passes, but very hard to do. And it's a very limited number of guys that can complete that.
Yeah, so it would seem as if Ime Udoka would be beneficial if they could sort their offense out a bit earlier so they can be in advantageous situations. I thought at times tonight they had the opportunity. It felt like they were successful when they decided to attack Steph. It felt like they were successful when they decided to attack Jordan Poole, but it felt like they didn't. I feel like they should be milking it more.
They didn't do it enough. They didn't do enough. My biggest point was when I talked to them on Spotify Live earlier was even if they don't get, it's not about the ISO game, but if you do get this, Wiggs is so effective. That's because going off because if you don't get the switch of Wiggs, now he's guarding Tatum. He's making that pass a lot harder. Draymond's making that pass a lot harder. If you do get collapsed, because either way, who you guard, obviously they can score on anybody. But if you're going to collapse with Wiggins on you, you know how much harder it is to make a pass over Wiggs or shoot over Wiggs. And you're saying instead of, even with Steph, you get a collapse, it's a lot easier to make a play, not just score. You can score, but also it helps to get him in foul trouble, also wear him down on defense or offensively. He has no legs. But it's a lot easier to make a play, not just score, but a play-making play against somebody open when a smaller guard is on you. Jayson, I think part of the reason was he got hot. It was a gift and a curse. He got so hot that he just said, give me the ball. I don't need the switch no more. Wiggs is playing good enough defense where he's like, nah, you're going to need us. Go get the switch, man. Just take it in, get into it sooner, get the switch, get Jordan Poole, get Steph, get somebody smaller. Even though Gary Payton's a great defender, he's smaller. It's easier to make a pass or playmaking play or finish over the top of him than it would be a bigger guard like Wiggins or Draymond or even Looney out there. So I think they need to do a better job of taking more advantage. It's to get into the offense faster, but get to switches and not just going ISO game, but making plays off the switches. And that's what gets you, domino effects where you'll get open looks from three and then you'll get offensive rebounds too because they're over rotating.
Yeah, no, I think you called it right on the head. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to see that, like, man, Boston could really win this series if they would just like care about the possession of the ball and care about each half court possession, not a stretch of caring about it, just care about it throughout the entirety of the game. And I think as you look at that roster, this is one of the things that, people had bemoaned going into the season for the Boston Celtics. It's like, all right, who is their actual playmaker? Who's actually going to set the table? And Jayson Tatum has done a good job as a playmaker. I think he's still leading the NBA Finals in assists. I think Marcus Smart has shown that he can be a point guard.
Which is shocking.
But not going to hold you.
With the turnovers and how they've been playing, for him to lead the finals in assists is shocking, which means he could be well above, head and shoulders above everybody if he actually made the right plays more efficiently, because he would have at least 3 or 4 more assists per game without turnovers. So they had 18 turnovers, and a lot of them is him and Jalen, and just simple, silly stuff, man.
Yeah, no, I have rooting interest in this series because I picked the Celtics to win, but at the same time, like, I'm not a fan of either team. Yeah. At the same time,
agreed.
I'm just like, at the same time, I'm just disappointed because I just want the Celtics to play at their best, and I just want the Warriors to play at their best. And obviously there's defense that will stop each team from playing at their best. But I want to see them play. I don't want to be like, man, the Celtics.
We'll see both teams play their potential and have a great basketball game.
Thank
it's
you.
hard to watch a game when one team is playing at the potential, the other one's not, or they're playing at it 1 quarter or half the game. It's like, you guys play at your potential, you guys would be beating the hell out of them. Or if you guys play at your potential, this would be a really good game if these guys would play at their potential. Both teams shot terribly tonight from 3 in the first half. They obviously picked it up in the second half, but if both teams played at potential, it's still a fun series. It's just sloppier, a little nasty, a little uglier basketball to watch when both teams aren't playing to the potential.
Yep. I think they could milk it. I think they'll be fine. Quick. Give me let me see. Fact or fiction, real quick. Okay, ready?
Okay.
Ime Udoka's success as a first year head coach, coaching a young team, has influenced Danny to maybe think about being a head coach. Fact or fiction?
Fiction. I'm not thinking about coaching, bro. I mean, I said, I know that I'd be decent at it. I think I'd be great at it. It's just certain things about it make life a lot more stressful than as a player. I see some of the coaches stressed. I'm not trying to be more stressed than what I am as a player right now. I wanted an easier, retired life where I can still be around the game, talk the game, and coaching really ain't it. But I can see myself helping out every once in a while. But Ime has inspired a lot of other guys to be, good coaches. But for me, I will say this. It's not it, but I will say this. He's put a little bit of just a tiny, tiny bit of, young coaches can make it. We'll see what Darvin Ham does too. But, young black coaches can make a real impact in this league. And maybe I could be that guy, one day. Oh,
there we go.
It's a very, very small 2% to maybe at the highest 8%. Like,
that's all. Hey, that's better. That's better than 0. Fact or fiction? Landry Fields, former New York Knicks, former NBA player. Landry Fields now becoming the general manager of the Atlanta Hawks. Has Danny Green thinking about working in a front office post-career?
No, it has not. I don't know what it pertains to do that. Maybe if I did more research on it, maybe. But I think front office might have more work than the coach, like a lot more traveling, it's more scouting. I don't know what it entails, but I think the hours you see your family, it's for me, I don't think so. When I'm retired from playing, I want to be able to be around my family more and not less. and have less stressful hours. And I think front office jobs and coaching jobs add more to it.
Fair enough. And last one. This one's a little bit different. Fact or fiction? Danny Green believes that he will be on the Philadelphia Sixers past July 1st. And I say that because Kevin O'Connor had a report today. I don't know if you saw it or not.
I did
but
not.
But the 76ers are rumored to be shopping the 23rd pick in the NBA draft, what they have this year, and your contract, you as a player, to make any type of improvement that they can make, because obviously everybody's operating under the expectation that you're not playing until 2023.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything along those likes?
So as a fact of fiction that I'll be playing for 76ers, I have not heard anything, but I'm going to stay positive and think that it'll be a fact past July 1 that I will be still on the roster at that point. I don't know what will happen July 2 or July 3 or 4, but I think July 1, I will still be a part of the 76ers roster, and I have not heard anything up to that point. So just hoping for the best, man, and said that people think that I'm out for the year. That's not who I am. I'm definitely gonna be back before the year is over. But I'm obviously not gonna rush this situation. I'm not gonna force it or press it. But I just know me, I know my body, I know my mentality, and I'm not gonna stop me rehabbing and working my butt off every day to get back to where I need to be. And it may take longer than I wanted to, but I think still I'll be back before that next year is over.
There we go. And then finally, fact or fiction? We will get an NBA drama of the highest ordeal. Game 7, back in Chase Center, Boston Celtics, Golden State Warriors. Fact or fiction? Do we get it?
Fact. We get it. We get the Game 7 we're all looking for, where I think Golden State plays, I'm going to say drops an eggs or lays it, has a dud. I don't think they play as well. In Game 6, Boston plays a little bit better, but I think Game 7 is going to be a game we're looking forward to, where both teams play the highest their potential. And then we live with the outcome, and everybody's satisfied with whoever wins.
To remind everybody of our picks, we both picked the Boston Celtics in 6. That obviously did not happen. Danny thinks it's going to 7. Who would you would have the Warriors winning in 7? I would assume.
I think they have an edge, but I'm gonna still stick with Boston, man. I have to stay with my team. I have to stay. Well, not my team. I have to stay with the team that I picked.
Fair enough.
I do think that Golden State has an edge on them. Said fact that they have home court. I do root for some of those guys that I've played with throughout the years, but honestly think they've won enough, and I want to see somebody else win. So I'm still going to stick with my team and see how they bounce back from this.
Yep,
and say my team, my pick. I'm going to stick with my pick and see how they bounce back from this.
Thank you for the clarification. I would say that before we got on the 2 times ago, after I think it was after Game 2, I put this on record on my Twitter, so I'm not changing anything, but I did say my predicted series outcomes in order. Number 1 was Boston in 6, which they flopped that away. Thank you very much. And then I had Warriors in 7, then Boston in 7. I hedged my bets. I'm sorry. I did it. I'm guilty. But nonetheless, I think one way or another, I'm going to be right.
You're going to win. You're going to win one of them.
Yeah, one way or another. I did call. Hey, I did.
Unless Golden State wins in 6, you'll be wrong.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that now. Don't do that, Golden State. I got to be right some way, somehow. All right, we'll be back on Thursday after the conclusion of Game 6, which we think will be a Boston Celtics win. So our picks could be somewhat still right. See you next time.